I accidentally finished 5 quilt bindings in one weekend. Hey Star Stitchers, if you're new here, I'm Kristen from IC Stars Quilting. If cozy quilting videos make you smile, tap that subscribe button and make yourself at home here. This past weekend was actually my birthday weekend. It's birthday month in my book, but you know, you celebrate however you want to celebrate. It turned into one of the most satisfying quilting weekends that I have had in a very long time. And honestly, I think this finish line weekend is one of my new favorite quilting traditions. Before you try to Google what a finish line weekend is, I have to tell you that I completely made this up. So that's why it may sound completely unfamiliar, like crazy quilter lingo to you, okay? And then 2, I am absolutely in love with it and I'm gonna make it a thing, okay? So listen to this video and then we're all gonna make this a thing together, okay? I decided to do something that sounded just really, really nice for me. And I did a mini solo quilting retreat right here in my sewing space. So today I'm going to show you what I worked on, show you the projects that I worked on, what I actually got finished, and then I'm going to share a few ideas if you've got quilts waiting patiently in the wings to be finished and you just don't have the drive to get up and get them done. That way you can have your own finish line weekend. I made 5 backings for other quilts. I long-armed 2 quilts, and then I prepped 6 more binding for quilts that are already in the queue to be long-armed. So here's the honest truth. I tend to normally have a lot of quilts that are halfway finished in my studio, okay? You know the ones, the tops are completely done, but they still need a backing sewn together, or they need the quilting done, or they need the binding finished, okay? And they just sit there quietly waiting, quietly waiting, and waiting and waiting and waiting for me to have that moment where I'm like, okay, what I really want to do today is sew on miles of binding. That day doesn't come very often, okay? But it does come. And none of these quilts had any deadlines, okay? So no one's waiting on them. They're not gifts that have like a specific deadline or a wedding that's coming up or anything. These quilts weren't made with a specific occasion in mind. They're simply quilts that I wanted to make for me or for you know, the process of learning how to do a skill, okay? So like a lot of quilters, I love starting new projects. And sometimes the finish line of one project that has lost its spark, it gets pushed to the side, right? So that I can begin another new shiny project. I know that there are quilters out there who will be nodding along with me right now as I'm talking to you. And also I know that there are quilters who are gonna feel their body like start to heat up and break out in like a cold sweat and anxiety creep in, because that's a lot of unfinished work, Kristen. I would love to know which camp you are in, okay? Every single way of handling things is right, because the only opinion that matters is your own opinion on your own work. So that being said, we're not going to talk about like all of the crazy unfinishedness anymore, so that those people can like kind of calm down, okay? And just know that I love you. I respect you for doing one project at a time and never having a work in progress. And I also respect the people who have quilts that are 30 years old still waiting to be finished, okay? It's just who you are. So for this weekend, I gave myself a rule because I like some type of container to work in. No new project started, no deep creative thinking or dreaming, because I'm still kind of like protecting that part of my brain right now. I can only focus on a few things at a time. And the only thing I wanted to do was the finish line work. What can I do to finish these quilts and move them closer to being done? And the progress that I made surprised even me. So in just one weekend, I finished 5 quilt bindings. I made 5 quilt backings using fabric from my own stash. I didn't go to the store and get fabrics for these quilts. I already had these fabrics in my stash and I just pulled them into being used for these particular quilts. I put 2 of my own quilts on the long arm that had been waiting in the queue for a long time. My quilts tend to wait much longer than the quilts that are sent in to me to be long armed. So I do mine in like spare time or when I just feel like working on something of my own or testing out some new stitches, okay? I also made and I prepped 6 more bindings for quilts that are ready to be quilted next so that I already have them done, okay? Yeah, it's a lot of bindings. When you look at that list of things that I accomplished, it's actually a huge amount of progress. Like, can you celebrate with me a little bit? Because when you look at my stack of completed quilts, my heart is so happy right now to have those quilts finished. And while they don't exactly have a place to go yet, I'm gonna love on them and I'm going to appreciate them so much. But what made me the happiest was seeing the quilts that had been patiently waiting for a while finally start moving forward, okay? I saw those tasks being completed. Believe me, I had like 5 different piles of like quilts that are in this stage and quilts that are in this stage and ones that still needed a binding and, you know, like all of that, okay? I got to see those piles shrinking on this side and moving more into the finished stage, all right? I have a quick question for you. How many quilts are sitting in your works in progress pile right now? Tell me in the comments so that I know that I am not alone in this. I want to know how many quilts you have. What's your okay, I could see myself having like 5 quilts in progress, but I could never do 10. Like what's your limit, or if you even have a limit? I don't know. I'm curious. You know, something funny about quilting is we love having finished quilts, but a lot of us, we don't love the finish line tasks. Binding, sewing backings together, labeling the quilts, creating the labels, trimming up the quilts, all the things that happen after the exciting part. And I've talked about this before. My favorite part is not the binding process. My favorite part is the shopping part. I love going shopping for the fabrics and planning it all. Okay, that's my favorite part. Then comes like the making of it, but then like by the time I get to the binding, I'm usually kind of like, what's the next new shiny thing? And I do finish quilts. I'm not going to tell you that like I never finish my quilts. Obviously, I finished a whole bunch of them this weekend. But when you batch those tasks together, the non-fun ones, the binding, the making all the bindings and stuff, when you batch those together, something interesting happens. They suddenly feel easier. And I noticed that this weekend. Like I wasn't grumpy at all over the weekend. I had a ton of fun looking through my fabrics and finding the mini bolts that I have that didn't have a ton of fabric on them, but like the print was small enough that it would make a really good binding. And then I even found ones that like they had quite a bit of fabric on there, but it would still make a really cool binding. So I trimmed up the entire whatever was left on that mini bolt and I just made extra bindings, okay? So instead of binding one quilt here and there, I just sat down and I worked through several at one time. And after a little while, it actually became really cathartic and relaxing. There's not a whole lot of like decision making in that. You're just sewing a straight line all the way down to the corner, flipping that corner and going all the way down the other side. It really was like, it was very cathartic and relaxing. And just a quick note, if binding is something that you struggle with, I do have a binding workshop that I teach. You can log into it and take it whenever your schedule allows for it. And I go through every step of the process, really good camera angles and everything so that you can see all of it. And it is the easiest, non-fussy tutorial. Okay, you're going to love it if binding is something that you struggle with. I will leave a link down in the comments if you want to check that out, plus a discount code to save you a few extra dollars so that you can put it towards future fabric purchases. Because I always appreciate it when creators do that and they save me a little bit of money in there. But I want you to be able to work on binding without the stress. Back to my finish line weekend. This is where the mini retreat part came in, okay? I treated the whole weekend like a little creative getaway. I didn't go in Saturday morning and be like, I'm gonna sew for like an hour and see what happens. I said, I'm gonna sew for most of the weekend here. I'm still gonna like have family time and all that, but I'm going to make sewing a priority. So I had my favorite movies playing on in the background, the ones that I've seen hundreds of times. So the scenes can kind of play in my head while I'm sewing and I don't have to watch them on the screen. Don't ever try and watch like a brand new movie while you're sewing, because one of them is going to win. You're either not going to hear the movie or you're not going to be able to see your project and notice things are not working out right. Okay. So I listened to a couple audiobooks while I stitched when I was tired of the movies. I made cozy warm drinks in the morning and I had my Coke Zero in the afternoon. I gave myself permission to make super easy, like very low prep dinners over the weekend. And I just enjoyed the process. Like, there was no pressure, no deadlines, I didn't even set like a specific, I will finish, blank number of quilts and I won't stop until I do that ultimatum that I gave myself. I just stitched. I had no idea what I would finish by the end of the weekend. It was just kind of like, well, these are the ones that I have to work on and let's see what happens. One seam at a time. It just kind of all came together that way. So if you have been feeling buried under unfinished projects, I highly recommend that you give something like this a try, okay? Have your very own finish line weekend, all right? Here's a few tips from me that helped me throughout the weekend. Tip number 1 is choose only finish line tasks to work on. Bindings, backings, labels, trimming. No starting new quilts. Nothing requiring heavy creative energy or piecing math, okay? Don't get into anything very, very specific. What worked with this was I chose tasks that didn't require a whole lot of mental energy, okay? Tip number 2 is to batch your work. Cut multiple backings at once. Prep multiple bindings at once. You're going to save so much time and mental energy if you batch those tasks, because again, you're not switching between focuses. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. Even if you change colors of fabric, you're doing the same thing over and over again. And then tip number 3 is to make it cozy. In no way should this feel like a sweatshop productivity marathon. All right. That's going to suck the fun out of it really, really fast. So light a candle, not where you're working, on the other side of the room. Okay. Watch an old movie, put on a diffuser with a lovely scent, put on an audiobook, even put on your own perfume if that's what you like to feel a little bit fancy. Okay. Take a break while you're working and sit outside in the sunshine. Let your eyes and your body and everything just kind of readjust, all right? Stretch. Treat it like a creative retreat where you don't even have to leave the house. Yeah, you have all your stuff with you. How amazing is that, right? Tip number 4 is to celebrate every finish. Even like one finished quilt totally counts, right? You are not behind in this. You are making progress with everything you do. And progress is progress. Full stop. End of sentence. Progress is progress. The best part of this whole weekend wasn't just the productivity. It was the reminder of why I love to quilt in the first place. Okay. These quilts, they didn't have deadlines. Nobody is going to know what I have in the insides of my closets here if I don't tell them. It's kind of like a little secret. It's not a bad secret or anything. There's just quilts that needed to be finished, but they didn't have any deadlines. There was nobody waiting on them. They simply existed because I wanted to make them. And seeing them come together after waiting very patiently, that felt really, really special to me. If you enjoyed this cozy quilting weekend with me, I have another video that will really help if you're feeling overwhelmed by the amount of unfinished work in your sewing room. I guarantee you are not the only person who struggles with that. if you wanted to raise your hand at that very moment, okay? I'm gonna share a link to the video so that you can watch that video next, okay? Look for it down in the description box, or you can see it across the top of the screen right here. But before you go, I want you to tell me in the comments, would you want to try a finish line weekend? Like, is that something that sounds really interesting to you? And how many quilts are currently waiting in your sewing room? There's no judgment here. I'm just curious. I just want to know. And you'll hear more from quilters out here on the Star Stitcher community. So if cozy quilting videos make you smile, please make sure you hit the subscribe button to join the Star Stitcher crew here on YouTube. It's my own cozy little corner of the internet, and I love it so much. So, all right, friend, I love you so much. Until next time, I'm Kristen with IC Stars Quilting. I love you, and I cannot wait to see all of the beautiful things that you are going to create. Keep stitching one seam at a time, and have a great week. Bye.